Her name is Ruth. She's 83 years old, a widow, a mother of 4. A woman the world quietly assumed was slowing down. But last Thursday, Ruth laced up her hiking boots, packed a small thermos of green tea, and walked 5 miles through the woods alone. The air was crisp. The trees whispered. Her legs steady. Her breath strong. That evening, while most her age were tucked in bed, Ruth slipped into a pair of silver dancing shoes and danced until midnight at her granddaughter's wedding. No cane, no complaints, just joy. Someone leaned in and asked her, "What's your secret?" Ruth just smiled. She said, "I decided not to age like they told me to. Most 80-year-olds can't do what Ruth does, and yet, it wasn't always this way." At 67, Ruth was nearly bedridden. Achy joints, shortness of breath. A life built around doctor's appointments and TV reruns. But something shifted. One day she looked in the mirror and saw a stranger. Tired eyes, slumped shoulders, a woman she barely recognized. And in that moment she whispered, "I want to live again." It wasn't magic, it wasn't perfect genes, it wasn't even a miracle drug. What Ruth discovered was a set of patterns, small, radical choices that began to reverse the decline. And if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, or even older, what you're about to hear could be the beginning of your second youth. Because aging in reverse isn't about looking younger, it's about feeling alive again. These 7 surprising signs, they're not just indicators of health, they're signs of hope. And if even one of them sounds like you, your comeback may already be in motion. Let's begin. Sign 1, you bounce back quickly from setbacks. Most people slow down after failure, a health scare, a broken relationship, a job loss. These things hit harder after 50. The bounce gets slower, the doubt gets louder. But if you've ever been knocked down and stood back up with fire still in your chest, then you're not aging. You're evolving. You see, Ruth didn't suddenly wake up one day strong at 83. She faced years of loss, she buried a child, she fought depression. She once went nearly 18 months without leaving her home. But it was her ability to rise again and again that kept her spirit youthful. You know what's rare? Falling, and instead of saying, "I'm too old for this," saying, "I've been through worse, let's go again." That's not just resilience. That's a nervous system that hasn't given up. That's a mind that still believes in the next chapters. That's a body that's been conditioned to heal, not just hurt. Most people assume that after a certain age, recovery gets harder. And yes, it might take longer. But what if speed wasn't the sign of youth? What if it's your willingness to try again that keeps you young? Because let's be honest, bouncing back isn't just about the knees or the back, it's about your heart, your outlook, your refusal to stay bitter. That bounce, that comeback energy, it's one of the clearest signs that you're aging in reverse. But bouncing back is only part of the story. Because what do you do when no one's watching? The way you feed your mind in silence and solitude, that's where the real anti-aging magic hides. And that leads us to the next sign. One most people overlook completely, you won't want to miss it. Sign 2, you stay curious. Ruth reads more now than she ever did in her 30s. Novels, science journals, even articles about Egyptian archaeology. But here's the key. She's not reading to impress anyone. She's reading because she's still curious about life. She's still learning, still asking questions. At 83, she wakes up wondering, what don't I know yet? That question alone makes her younger than many people in their 40s who've already decided the world has nothing new to offer them. You see, when we stop being curious, we start shrinking. Our thoughts get smaller. Our worldview stiffens. We stop noticing the details. The colors are dull, and the spark dims. But curiosity is mental oxygen. It keeps the brain agile, the neurons firing. It invites new pathways of thought which, science tells us, helps slow cognitive decline, protect memory, and even delay diseases like Alzheimer's. And it's not just about books. It's about asking your grandson how TikTok works, even if you don't care. It's about watching a documentary that makes you uncomfortable. It's about being okay with not knowing everything and wanting to learn anyway. Ruth joined an online birdwatching group last year. She couldn't name more than 2 birds when she started. Now, she can tell you the difference between a warbler and a wren by song alone. She says it gives her something to marvel at. Marveling, that's what children do. And if you still marvel, still chase wonder, still lean forward into the unknown instead of shrinking back in fear, then you are not aging, You are expanding, because aging isn't just about what happens to your body, it's about what happens to your view of the world. Curiosity isn't just a trait of the young, it's a decision the wise continue to make. And here's the beautiful twist, and when the mind stays young, the body often follows. Let's talk about that next. Sign 3. You move with intention, not obligation. Ruth doesn't exercise, not in the way we've been taught to think about it. She doesn't drag herself to a gym or count steps with a guilty conscience. She moves with intention. She walks to feel the wind on her face. She stretches because it helps her breathe deeper. She dances in the kitchen because the song moves her spirit before it moves her feet. That difference between moving out of punishment and moving out of pleasure is everything. It separates those who fight their bodies and from those who partner with them. There's something ancient and wise about the body. It knows when we treat it with joy and when we treat it like a problem to fix. And the truth? The body responds better to love than to discipline. Ruth told us once, "I don't run laps, I chase sunsets." She doesn't lift weights. She lifts her great-grandchild laughing into her arms. That's not working out. That's working. That's vitality expressing itself in real time. And here's the real secret. Movement that feels good is sustainable. Movement that brings joy rewires your brain to crave more of it. That's not just healthy, that's healing. When you move with curiosity instead of criticism, your joints, your breath, your balance, they all respond. That's not aging, that's alignment. You walk because it feels right. You stretch because it frees you. You bend not because someone told you to, but because you can. That right there is your proof your body hasn't given up on you. And more importantly, you haven't given up on it. But what happens when aging doesn't just slow us, it isolates us? When movement becomes less about muscles and more about connection? The next sign reveals how some are beating that invisible trap and staying younger in ways most never see coming. Sign 4. You build new relationships. Most people shrink their circle as they age. They let go of old friends, avoid making new ones, and retreat quietly into their routines. Some call it peace, but often it's fear dressed in comfort, a slow surrender to isolation. But if you're still forming friendships, joining book clubs, signing up for a painting class, even if you're the oldest one in the room, you're not just social, you're growing. And growth at any age is a quiet, dignified rebellion against decline. Ruth says her favorite person to talk to right now is a 24-year-old barista at the cafe she visits every Sunday. They exchange poems. Ruth brings one, the barista brings one. She calls it their literary duel. That connection, it didn't exist a year ago, but now it feeds her. It keeps her sharp, it keeps her curious. Too often we assume it's too late to make new friends, that people have already found their circles, that reaching out might make us look needy or awkward. But the truth is, everyone at every age is craving connection. And the courage to initiate? That's a form of youth most people overlook. New relationships create new neural pathways. They challenge the mind. They offer perspective. They wake us up to lives beyond our own. And they remind us that our story isn't over yet. As long as you are still connecting, you're still contributing. You're still evolving. Ruth didn't stop building relationships after 60. In fact, she says her social life expanded. She started calling people she hadn't spoken to in years. She joined a community garden. She invited her neighbor, whom she barely knew, to go with her to a local art museum. That neighbor is now her closest friend. You see, connection isn't a luxury of youth, it's the heartbeat of vitality. And when you still have the openness to love, to laugh, to learn from others, you are not just living longer, you are living better. But connection isn't just about people. It's also about something deeper, something many lose touch with as the years go on. And the next sign speaks directly to that. Sign 5. You still have a reason to wake up. Ruth teaches a watercolor class at the community center every Thursday afternoon. She's not paid for it. She doesn't do it to stay busy. She does it because when she walks into that room, paints in one hand, cookies in the other, something inside her lights up. Purpose doesn't need to be grand. It doesn't need to impress anyone. But it needs to pull you forward. It needs to whisper to you in the morning, get up. There's still something beautiful to do. Most people underestimate how dangerous an aimless life becomes after a certain age. Not just emotionally, but biologically. When there's nothing meaningful to look forward to, the body knows. It slows. Muscles weaken. Memory dulls. Motivation disappears. But purpose? Purpose rewires the aging process. Purpose gives structure to the day and meaning to the ordinary. It tells your nervous system you're still needed, you're still capable, you still belong. Ruth's class is small, 7 women all over 60. Some had never held a paintbrush before, but now they create together, laugh together. They learn from Ruth, and Ruth learns from them. One of her students said, "I stopped needing therapy, I come here instead." That one sentence, Ruth says it keeps her alive. Purpose doesn't have to be a class, it can be a garden. A letter you write every week to your grandchild, a soup kitchen, a book club, even just a daily ritual of walking your dog and chatting with the neighbors. It's the why behind your days that slows the how fast of your aging. Your body takes notes, it listens. When it senses you're in motion toward something meaningful, it releases better hormones, regulates better sleep, boosts your immunity. Not because you're chasing youth, but because you're chasing life. Don't underestimate what gets you out of bed in the morning. It could be the very thing keeping you young. But what about how you treat your body, especially after decades of wear and tear? This next sign might shock you. Sign 6. You listen to your body, not fight it. At 43, Ruth broke her ankle slipping on a patch of ice. At 72, she pulled a muscle reaching for a bag of flour. But by 83, something had changed. Not her bones, not her muscles. Her mindset. She told us, "I stopped treating my body like a battlefield and started treating it like a beloved friend." Most of us were raised to push through discomfort, to ignore fatigue, to treat pain as weakness. We learned to earn rest by first exhausting ourselves. And by the time we reach our 50s, 60s, 70s, the toll becomes visible in our joints, our posture, our sleep, our breath. But those who age in reverse, they stop the war. They stop punishing their bodies for slowing down and start listening when their bodies whisper instead of waiting for the scream. Ruth says she knows exactly which days her hips need yoga and which days they need a nap. She doesn't overwork herself for approval. She doesn't shame herself into workouts. She tunes in. Because when you listen with compassion, your body responds with grace. Aging in reverse isn't about Botox or clean eating trends, it's about relationships. It's waking up and asking your body, "How can I love you today?" Not, "How can I fix you?" Those who live longest and live well, they treat their bodies like sacred homes. They rest without guilt, move without force, nourish without obsessing. They understand that aging doesn't mean abandoning the body. It means finally befriending it. And when that relationship deepens, something extraordinary happens. The body begins to trust again. It heals faster, breathes deeper, walks taller, and yes, it ages slower. Because it's no longer surviving. It's finally thriving. But your body is only one part of the story. Because there's something even more powerful, something that fuels all the rest. Let's talk about your spirit. Because what's coming next might just be the most powerful sign of all. Sign 7. You forgive faster than you did before bitterness is weight. And the longer we carry it, the more it settles into our bodies, tightening the jaw, stiffening the shoulders, clouding the mind. Most people think forgiveness is for the other person. But those who age in reverse, they know better. They know forgiveness is for themselves. Ruth once carried a betrayal that haunted her for over 40 years. Her sister, her closest confidant, had broken her trust in a way that shattered their bond. Ruth didn't speak her name for decades. Every family gathering was a silent battlefield. Every memory was stained. Until one morning on her 79th birthday, Ruth woke up and whispered, "I'm tired of hurting." She didn't forgive because her sister apologized. She didn't forgive because the past was fixed. She forgave because she was ready to breathe again, because the ache had taken up residence in her chest, and it was time to evict it. That week she wrote her sister a letter, not for reconciliation but for release. And when she dropped it in the mailbox, she said it felt like someone peeled 10 years off her back. Forgiveness doesn't make you weak. It doesn't mean what happened was okay. It means you are done letting it own you. It means you're choosing lightness over the heavy coat of resentment. And science now backs what the soul has always known. Chronic anger, regret, and emotional tension accelerate aging. But peace, Peace heals. It softens the breath. It eases the heartbeat. It changes the chemistry of the body itself. Those who forgive faster than they used to aren't naive, they're wise. They understand that life is too short to spend decades rehearsing pain that can't be undone. They choose presence over punishment, joy over justice, liberation over lingering. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's remembering without re-bleeding. It's closing the book without throwing it away. And when you do that, something remarkable happens. The spirit lifts. And where there was once tension, there is now room to live fully. Ruth says after she forgave, her breathing got easier. But more than that, her mornings felt different. Lighter. Brighter. And she knew. This wasn't just emotional. This was physical. This was cellular. Because when the spirit heals, the body often follows. Most 80-year-olds can't do what Ruth does, but not because they're broken, not because they've run out of time, but because they were never shown another way. Because somewhere along the line they were told to slow down, to shrink, to accept that their best days were behind them. But Ruth? She didn't just refuse that narrative. She rewrote it, not with grand gestures, but with simple, defiant choices. Choices that whispered day after day, "I'm not done yet." She chose to listen to her body instead of scolding it, to nourish her mind with curiosity instead of dulling it with routine. She chose connection over isolation, forgiveness over bitterness, movement over stagnation. She chose purpose, even if that purpose was just bringing joy to 7 women in a small watercolor class on a Thursday afternoon. You see, aging in reverse doesn't mean pretending you're 25. It doesn't mean denying your years, it means honoring them. It means using every lesson, every scar, every setback as fuel to grow stronger, softer, wiser. It means becoming more you with every passing season. So maybe you don't hike mountains like Ruth. Maybe your joints ache or your energy's lower than it used to be. That's okay. Because if you're still learning, if you're still loving, if you're still looking for the meaning tucked inside your days, then you're already doing what most gave up on long ago. You're not just aging, you're living. And that is the secret. Not to cheat time, but to dance with it. Not to fear the mirror, but to meet your own eyes and say, "There's still fire here." If this video touched something in you, if even one part of Ruth's story made you pause, breathe, reflect, don't keep that to yourself. Like this video to tell the algorithm that this kind of wisdom matters. Subscribe if you want more content that feeds your spirit, not just your screen. But most of all, share your story in the comments. Tell us, what's one thing you do that makes you feel young, free, or fully alive? Because someone scrolling through might just find hope in your words. And if you know someone who's forgotten their own strength, a sister, a father, a friend, send this to them. Be the person who says, "It's not too late, you're not too old, there's more life left to live." Because Ruth's story isn't rare, it's just rarely told. And maybe it's time we told more of them. Thank you for watching, and remember, youth isn't an age, it's a choice.